On this episode of the HHN Obsession podcast, take a seat with us by the campfire as we look back and debate our first 2 years of HHN. Enjoy the sounds of the crackling fire as a storm brews in the distance, and listen in as we do a deep dive into HHN27 and 28 and discuss our favorite memories from each year. Which year tops the other? Grab your s'mores fries and your carnival dogs, and let's debate together. What is up, my fellow HHN obsessees, and welcome to the HHN Obsession podcast, where we talk about all things HHN and obsess together over this amazing event. I am your host, JJ. With me, I have the co-host, James.
James, I gotta figure out an intro. I still don't have one.
That's your intro. You don't have one.
I never did.
Hi, I'm James, and I still don't have an intro.
Yeah, just play that. That'll work.
What is up, everybody? We are here to do a look back episode and kind of a versus episode. We are going to be talking about HHN 27, 28, and 32. Now, the reason that we're getting together to do this episode is not only have we been teasing that we're going to be doing a flashback episode, but also, our previous HHN 32 episodes, we kind of talked about how we couldn't really figure out if HHN 32 was our number one favorite year. And for me, I don't know about you, James, I still don't quite know yet. And I figured we could get on here and kind of compare our top 3 favorite years to see which one is going to win. Kind of a, versus episode.
Yeah.
I think we both agreed that HHN 30 and HHN 31 are at the bottom of our list as, least favorite. And we did not get to attend HHN 29, unfortunately, so that's out of the question, although I've heard that was a great year. So all we're going to be comparing today is 27, 28, and 32 and find out who the victor is.
We're gonna boil it down, and I think I'm relying on the consensus kind of style. It's like I think we will agree. I'm guessing. I don't know.
I think so too, but at the same time, 27 and 28.
And I'm not assuming like the winner. I'm just whatever it is. I think we'll mostly agree.
27 and 28 because they were our first 2 years. I always said that they're going to be very hard to beat as my favorites. But since HHN 32, it's very hard for me to decide which one is the best, even which one's second best. So I think this is really going to help that situation. Just want to go straight into it, talking about our first 2 years. What we can do is we could talk about HHN 27 kind of versus HHN 28 first, and kind of figure out those two. And I think you suggested kind of as a mini bracket thing.
Yeah. Hey, I do want to preface this. I want to say I've always said they blend together, right? All the years, and I was trying to think why. We first went to Universal. I think it was a band thing. That broke the seal for me, and from there on, I stopped. I don't know why. I don't know why I wasn't paying attention to which years I went, but they were the Horror Nights was the lesser focus of those years. They were eventful, tumultuous stuff in the years. So I just enjoyed my time there and took advantage of being there rather than focusing on the details. And looking back, I can see you've been analyzing everything for a while. Even the start of this podcast, I could tell you were sitting on it for a minute. But
it was kind of a thing I wanted to do for a while. But yeah. That was also my introduction to Universal Studios Orlando, was that school trip that we did. But I've told this story in our introduction episode. The very first episode we did was I was actually a tour guide at a cave doing one of the crawling tours with a group of college students, I believe. And they were talking about going to Halloween Horror Nights. And that just kind of sparked an idea where I was like, oh, I got to go to this. I got to look this up. And that year where we ended up going, and that was 2017 for HHN 27. And kind of fell in love ever since then.
Sick, dude. Okay. Yeah. I feel bad, but upon the last few seasons of this podcast, I look back and I realized there's a lot of thought going into this. And I've just been the bystander kind of
So, back to the whole thing about how they're kind of blending together for you. Not so much for me. Some things I have to kind of really think about what year it happened. I'm pretty good at remembering certain things, but I do get why yours kind of blends together. One reason is the first 2 years we went, we didn't go for as many days as we usually go, and we didn't have express those first
Hmm.
2 years. So I think we got to do the houses way less back then, and we did way less things every night.
Yeah, a lot of line
So
waiting.
a lot of line waiting. The very first year we went, we only saw HHN 3 days. It was only 3 nights of HHN that first year, and I think there was like at least one or two houses where we only did once.
Hey, another thing.
That's kind of
too-
what I remember.
Another thing too, looking back at these to for a little refresher, like I know we'll get into this, but they weren't as cohesive as this past year. You know, like they were like standalone scare zones and standalone houses. This year they
Right.
tied it all together. It's like it helped it a lot. I think it's like a meatloaf. You know, it's like when you don't put in the bread, like it falls apart. Like it held together, sticky. It was good.
That is very true. The first couple years we went, they didn't really do that. The previous years before we went, there was some years where there was kind of cohesiveness, but we just missed those. So
Hmm.
it happens every now and then. Hopefully it'll continue to happen.
Yeah, nothing against that. It's just that's part of the reason that they blended together. Because there were pieces, and then the next year was pieces, and it's like pieces. If they were all one theme, they would stick apart more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this is the Oddfellow year. I mean, you can't mix this one up.
That's true. Yeah, it's a lot easier to remember because Oddfellow was everywhere.
Yeah.
All right, so I do have all of the event maps in front of me, ready to go as kind of a guide, I guess, event guide to what we're going to be talking about here. All right, so right off the bat, starting with HHN27, I can already tell you one thing that could hurt HHN27 as being the number one spot. HHN27 only had 9 houses and not 10.
Yeah, I noticed that, and I was like, that's weird. It's wrong.
HHN27 was the final year of 9 houses. HHN28 was the very first year that 10 houses were at the event.
Oh, I thought it was longer established. Like 10 is just it's 10. You know,
Nope.
top 10.
HHN slowly started to build up more houses as the years went on. So we did experience the final year of 9 houses and the first year of 10 houses. All right, so back in 2017, as we walk into the park, the very first thing that you would walk into was American Horror Story, and that was going to be right there by the Despicable Me entrance. And this American Horror Story was actually the second year in a row that they had done an American Horror Story house. And this did consist of 3 seasons. It was Asylum, Coven, and Roanoke in this haunted house. I believe we only did this house twice because it was always a super long line. But I actually looked back at my ranking list for 27, and American Horror Story was number 3, my number 3 favorite. What I remember about this house was as soon as you walked in, the facade was the Asylum. And I just remember Asylum wasn't my favorite season out of the American Horror Stories, but I just remembered it being so cool being the first year at Horror Nights, seeing how grand their sets were.
You know, those ensemble type of shows, or what's it called, anthology types, where you know each season changes. Like, I can't get into those as much. I don't know why. It just makes me feel like, you know, they're contained within the season. So what am I committing to, like with another season? I don't know. That one, not as much for me.
Now, you take this American Horror Story house and compare it to HHN28. The first house where you would walk into at HHN28 was the first iteration of Stranger Things.
Same house, same spot, or
Same spot, yeah, same. Well, technically not the same entrance, but it was the first house on the map.
Mhm.
And you cannot go wrong with that first Stranger Things house. I remember that house way more than the American Horror Story house. So if we're comparing that way, there's no battle there at all. American Horror Story Definitely not as good as that first Stranger Things house.
Oh
I
yeah.
just remember how fun that house was, going through the lab, the upside down, just the effects and seeing all the characters, and that being one of the biggest shows of all time, being like real popular at the time. It still is popular, but just how big of a presence it was just around the world at the time. It was a big deal.
Totes my goats. Hey, is this how we're gonna compare spots like to the following spot,
Should
like
we?
in the same?
We should.
That's
right?
interesting.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, if we're doing a walkthrough, we're virtually inspecting. If we're time traveling, then yeah, I hadn't considered that. Like this was here, and now this is here, which was better.
yeah.
We can do that.
All right. Following that, the B spot on the map for HHN27 was The Shining. Yeah. That house I loved that year. Like,
Yeah, that's Hall of Fame right there.
Absolutely walking in, and you were brought into the hedge maze with the snow all around you. Going into the bathroom scene with the tub, seeing the elevator with the blood coming out. It was just so freaking cool to see those scenes in person, walking through it. I'll never forget that house. I believe we were able to do it more than twice. I can't remember how many times we did each house because we had to wait in the normal queues. But I do remember loving the hell out of this house. And,
Oh yeah, where other houses, like, they'll give you a clip show of the highlights. This felt like it was the whole movie. I don't know how they put the whole movie in there, but they managed to, like, tons of scenes.
You managed to walk through all of 2 hours of The Shining.
That one they crushed it. That was
What's funny about my rankings from back then is that I put American Horror Story 3 and The Shining 4. Looking back now, I wouldn't put it like that, because I remember The Shining so much more, and I don't know, I that's the house I would love to revisit over American Horror Story. So it just shows how much rankings can change just from memories.
Yeah, the anthology thing with the American Horror Story, I think, hurt the house, because it's like, how you gonna split a house into 3 different houses, I mean, I know it's one house under the same. It's weird. It's all dissected. It's
Yeah, pretty much 3 houses in one, mini houses.
Yeah.
All right, so this one, I bet you don't remember this one very much. I do. So the B spot on the HHN28 map was Carnival Graveyard Rust in Pieces, which was an original house, and it was basically a bunch of carnies in like an old junkyard, carnival junkyard. And what was great about this house was the whole junkyard it consisted of old Universal and Horror Nights props. They just basically stacked all this and made it a junkyard, and there was Easter eggs everywhere. This was the Easter egg house. I will admit, at the time, I didn't know very much about those Easter eggs, but now looking back at it, I can appreciate what was in there and how like fan service it was to the HHN community. The biggest thing I can remember about this house was you would walk over a carny throwing barrels at you above your head, basically. I remember that being a wow moment. And also, this was another example of seeing the house, that you could see the whole layout of the house through like the whole junkyard, kind of like Blood Moon or Dead Man's Pier.
Do you think this would be, I mean, maybe not, but you think it was like a prototype for Oddfellow and the Clowns to come?
Or Jack. I mean, it could have been from Jack, but yeah, I could see how this would be kind of similar to the Oddfellow stuff, for sure.
I want to throw in a potentially unpopular opinion in general about these Easter egg, fan service houses. I feel like, you're sacrificing something there in order to service the fans that will get it. Like, I think you're closing off a lot of people. And like, also, it puts horror in the second place. Like, it puts the lore and the history at the forefront, which is good for fan service, but I think that needs to have its own, like, it puts it in its own category, away from like the houses that get you, that are trying to get you. This one's trying to give you more than
I get what you're saying, and I kind of agree with it to a certain extent. However, let's think of it this way. We're pretty new to the fan base compared to a lot of people. Like, a lot of people have been going to this thing for years and years and years.
Yeah.
and they miss a lot of things. They've seen so much that they have so many favorites from their previous years. Let's just think of ourselves. Like, what if in the future we've been going for 10, 15 years? They
Okay.
bring something that has nothing but our favorites from the years we went. How much are we going to appreciate that? How much are we going to like love it and
No, that's fair. I guess. Yeah, I'm not trying to get rid of them. It's just it needs its own category, and it is nice that it's at least one or two per year of fan service, and the rest are like for the newcomers, right? Like,
right.
okay, yeah, you turned me
So-
around there. I mean, not that I was against it. It's just that's what I was kind of noticing with these type of fan service houses.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It does take away from something really crazy or terrifying that they could do.
It's more of an I Spy kind of Where's Waldo.
Yeah. I think it's pretty fun for people that have been going for many, many years.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool that Universal is willing to do that for fans that have been going for so long. Like, it's crazy how much this event has built up a fan base. Like, I don't think you see that too often in theme parks, besides Disney, I guess. But this is a totally different ball game than Disney.
Yeah, you think there's a difference between Disney adults and Universal adults?
I think the general consensus is the Disney fans are a little kind of separated from the Universal fans.
No, absolutely. But
Yeah.
I know they're different. I'm not saying they're the same thing. I'm saying they're like two sides of the same coin, right? Because people will be like, "Oh, Disney nerds, you love that thing so much," and then you turn around and it's kind of the same obsession, no? It's just with a different target. I don't know what I'm saying.
No, I get you. All right, so let's go back to this. The B spot. We got The Shining and Carnival Graveyard. To me, it's a no-brainer. Obviously, Shining
Yes.
wins. Which this is cool because that's a point for HHN27. The last house was a point for HHN28. So
And another thing, like carnivals for me, that's just a personal thing. Carnivals, they're fun, but they're gross, and I don't want to go to a fake carnival. No, thank you. Like, if I'm gonna get grossed out and weird, icky vibes, at least I can get some funnel cake out of it, or I'm there and I can throw a ball. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Let's go on. Carnival. I'm just the carnival stuff. I'm not into it. Like, as you know from the Oddfellow house this past year.
yeah, you put Oddfellow kind of low. But
This is just carnival vibes. That's nothing personal.
So Shining wins over Carnival Graveyard. So that gives a point to HHN27. Now, going to the C spot on the map. This is one that I did really like from our first year. It was very unique to me, but I feel like a lot of people didn't like it as much. And that is the original called The Fallen, where it was kind of a mixture of angels and demons battling each other.
Yeah.
The craziest thing and the thing that like amazed me back in the day when I saw it was when we went through that house, there was a scare actor on a bungee that would just launch at you, and it had giant wings that would kind of flap it like it was flying towards you, and it was the coolest thing.
No, I didn't flap toward you. It fell toward you. Fall in. Never mind.
Ha ha ha.
Hey.
Do you remember this house, James?
Yeah, it kind of gave me Hellraiser vibes, but like off-brand.
From what I heard when the event first started for that year, it was a lot more intense at the start and wasn't by the end of it. Because of the whole angels and demons thing. I think because of the religion stuff, they had to weaken it a little bit, unfortunately.
What do you mean? Like, stick to the demons, take out the angels, or what?
I'm not entirely sure. I just heard that it was changed throughout
Like, just
the event.
Just tone it down.
Yeah. But then we go to HHN28, and that one is another original, and that is Scary Tales Deadly Ever After. I personally really love this house. It was basically a take on a bunch of fairy tales, but in a horror aspect or horror versions of themselves. The ones I can remember were like Humpty Dumpty, Hansel and Gretel. I think they had Rapunzel in there. I remember the facade, you walking in, and there was a castle with a witch on a bungee kind of flying in the air.
They do too many bungee stuff. They gotta put someone in the ground and grab your foot.
I
Dig
think
a
those
hole.
effects are cool.
I
I
know.
think when they use it, it works. So
I'm
Uh,
just saying, balance it out. Put someone down there. Put someone down.
in the Humpty Dumpty scene, I remember it having a rotten egg smell, and then there was these like guards that came out, and they had like boils on their faces, and there was an effect where they would, when they screamed at you or jumped at you, they would spray water, which was supposed to be the boils bursting in your face.
I think those are called the eggites.
Did you just make that up, or is that really?
Yeah. No, right now I made that up.
Oh god. Oh, the deadites. I got you. Oh
Yeah.
god.
Yeah, deadites.
So Scary Tales is actually a returning original property. This is a franchise that HHN has created, but this was the first time we experienced it. But I really enjoyed it. It was definitely a really fun time, and something I wouldn't mind them bringing back again in another iteration.
Yeah, it was a fun concept, and they crushed it. I think that's another egg joke. You crush eggs. But yeah, give a sequel or just another batch. Oh, another egg joke. There you go. Are those even egg jokes? I don't know if there's. Whatever. Yeah. Humpty Dumpty was cool though, like all smashed up and the egg everywhere. Yeah, very good.
Mm-hmm. For me, Scary Tales over The Fallen, but I love both houses, so
That one's hard. No, I think I agree with you. They're kind of close to me though. Yeah, I'll give it to Scary Tales.
the next one really sucks to put them together because I love them both, and I almost already just want to give them a tie. But for HHN27, letter D was Dead Waters, another original house. And that, I remember the facade being absolutely beautiful. It was this old riverboat that was like half sunken, and you would walk into the riverboat, and it was this Louisiana swamp old boat with like these marsh creatures. I just remember that house being incredibly beautiful. I remember it being short, but it was one of the most beautiful houses of those 2 years, I think. If I had to pick one that was absolutely beautiful out of both years, I think that would be the one.
Hey, and they set the stage for they walked so that the weekend could run because that house they based on the Doobie Brothers song, right? Oh, Dead Water, keep on rolling, right? That's Blackwater, it's not Dead Waters. Anyway, I got the same vibes though.
Dead Waters to you, James?
It was atmospheric. Not a lot to say there. I mean, I know that was one of your favorites, and you always bring it up. And at the time, I think we were going through rankings, and that was a big one for you.
Number 2 on the rankings that year.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, not as much as of an impression. Like, no offense to you, but that one doesn't stick to me as much.
Interesting. That's unfortunate. Well, here we go. Moving over to D in HHN28. That was Poltergeist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was actually number 1 for me that year. That's one of my all-time favorite houses. Like that's an all-timer was Poltergeist. I mean,
Totally.
The fact that they recreated that house, it was so cold in there, and I just took that as the paranormal aspect to it, how the paranormal ghosts create cold spots.
Just choose to believe that. Make that your truth. Don't listen to anything else.
Yeah. But one of the best facades they have ever created, as far as we've seen. The first thing you see is you walk into the pool where all the bodies were. You're in the pool as soon as you walk in, and above the pool you see the house. So that was the facade, was walking through the pool with the house above you, and you actually go underground through the pool and into the house, which is unique, but it was such an amazing touch. And they had that soil smell in there, so it was like you were actually walking into the dirt, into the mud. They had bodies sticking out of the walls. It was raining in that first scene.
Yeah, they left all the crushed little skeletons.
But the effects of this house were just so fun, walking through the kitchen with all the crazy stuff moving around. And then the second half of the house was original, because you actually walk into the TV and go into that ghost realm that you didn't see in the movies. So
Hell yeah.
That made it so unique.
I love when houses do that.
To me, it's just an all-timer. One of the best that I've seen. which is weird because I've heard some people say this wasn't a good house, and I don't understand that. That it was phenomenal. And I'm glad we got to see it because wow, man, I this is obviously over Dead Waters, but I just can't make that an overall win for that year. It's just they're both amazing houses to me, but Poltergeist is definitely over.
Yeah, that
Dead
one's not
Waters.
fair. That one's not a fair side by side.
So those were all the those are all the soundstage houses for both those years. This is great, actually. This is great to talk about here because letter E on both years is the Horrors of Blumhouse. So we're actually going to be comparing both Horrors of Blumhouse houses
Sick.
right now. So
Okay.
we have Volume 1 and Volume 2 to talk about. Volume 1, if I remember correctly, was the second house we ever did. I always kind of went back and forth trying to remember if it was the first house or the second house we did. I'm pretty sure it was the second one. And this house consisted of, as soon as you walked in, it was Sinister, then it went to The Purge, and then it ended with Insidious. I know you're not a huge fan of Sinister, but I think the demon itself is kind of creepy, and the atmosphere that they put into those couple of scenes that were in the house were great. But obviously the best part of that house was Insidious. I really enjoyed that house. What's crazy is it was toward the bottom of my list at the number 8 spot, but it was a house we did a lot because I think the line was always shorter. It wasn't the house we did the most. We'll talk about that later. But we did this one a lot because that line was always shorter. I think it was a fun time.
Did you say, which one did you say I don't care for? Sinister?
Sinister. That's the one with the films in the attic.
Yeah, Ethan Hawke, right?
Yeah.
I liked it. I just had that one complaint where
You can't change that. No, you hated
I didn't like where it went.
the fact.
Look, I was enjoying it, and I liked it. I didn't like where it ended up. Does that take away the whole thing? I don't know. I was enjoying it. I can't say that I enjoyed it. I was enjoying it, but I just have that complaint where the demon, how does he manipulate the pixels of the thing in that one frame to just turn his head and then turn back? No one saw it either. Who are you flexing on, demon? Who are you trying to show off? No one saw. That's when you do a trick and no one saw. How many demon powers does it take to manipulate? You move this pixel over here, and this one you turn your little demon head. What do you didn't, that's not impressive to me. That's like a weird flex. It's lame. But if you liked the demon, I mean, I don't want to crap on it. It's just it was going so good until it was like, and then at the end, like it seemed like it was gonna be compelling and like maybe there's a creep in the neighborhood or something. It was the demon. It was the devil. It's like they could have explained it in a more terrifying way. That's not scary. A creep in your neighborhood, that's scary.
Okay, so as far as this house goes, though, James, like I said, this was one of the first things that we ever saw at Horror Nights. Like, it was still daylight outside, I remember. Do you have any memories of this, even just seeing it,
I do remember
second or
the
third
line.
time?
Yeah, outside, it was like the house, the Bloom house. It was pretty cool.
All right, so there's that comparing to the Horrors of Blumhouse Volume 2 at HHN28, which was only 2 movies. It was Happy Death Day and The First Purge.
Yeah.
I didn't hate this house. I still enjoyed going through it. We, again, went through it a lot just because the line was short. But it definitely wasn't my favorite of the year. And I definitely don't think it was better than the first year. Right off the bat, no.
Do you know why? Because I can sum it up in like an obvious explanation.
I think we're both going to say the same thing. And that's because Happy Death Day is just repeating the same room over and over again. Yeah. And The Purge was in there again.
Yeah. It's 2 houses. If you're going to commit, like, I mean, well, okay, my point was the repetitiveness, obviously. But it's like, it's the same, you're walking in the same scene through the house. That seems like wasted space. I mean, I get what you're trying to do with the effect, but it's not enough. Like, you go there for, right. I don't know. They didn't do enough with the repeating to make it worth it. And then, everyone,
not at all.
Purges, whatever.
Okay, so do we both agree that the original Horrors of Blumhouse, I think Volume 2 was the worst of the trilogy that they've done.
Oh, something else. We'll probably talk about it when we get to scare zones, but I do think, The Purge works way better as a scare zone. I mean,
absolutely. We will definitely be talking about that.
Yeah. How are you gonna put The Purge as an afterthought to Death Day in a small confined space. You're not in the Purge anymore. You're in a little room, and not even a full room. It's like a nugget of a room. Nah, you need the space. You need the atmosphere, the environment.
It was
Anyway.
multiple rooms. It was just a smaller
Yeah,
representation
the
of it.
Purge. You don't contain the Purge in a little box.
That's true. But yeah, Horrors of Blumhouse Volume 1 definitely overpowers the 28.
Yeah.
All right, so letter F is going to also be interesting because, man, it's hard because I love both these houses too. Letter F on the HHN27 map was the Hive. And this was, I'm almost 90% sure, this was our very first house that we ever did at HHN. This was basically just an abandoned house with a nest of vampires in it. And I remember loving it. I remember they had contact lenses that were blacklight reactive, so their eyes would glow in the blacklight of the house.
I forgot that.
It was insane. I remember they had a one of those stilt actors where they just had a tall ass vampire, and these were like Nosferatu looking vampires, by the way.
Yeah.
They were kind of that vibe.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to say. Like I was looking back at the footage, and it's like German impressionistic horror, like with Nosferatu and whatever style. But like it's a trap house or like a orgy house. Like it's a blood party, but it's artsy. It's artsy, but it's, I don't know. There's shadows everywhere. It's like they paid attention to this house, and it is like an old school vibe, but it's, yeah. I don't know. I was very impressed.
Definitely.
Looking back.
This, by the way, was in one of the tent houses, which again, they did an amazing job fitting it all into one of those dome tents. With it being the very first house we did, I just have a lot of fond memories of it. This was another house we did a lot because of the shorter lines. I've heard from multiple podcasts and just posts that this house wasn't people's favorite. I loved it. It obviously wasn't the top of my list this year, but I had it at number 5. I really enjoyed it. It's definitely always going to be a fond memory that I have because it was
that one's
the first
cool.
house.
That's a cool one, and it's like a free for all in there. It's like hardly presented. It's just like you're walking through, some murder scenes, and you're next.
So the word on the street was that house was one of those houses that was changed last minute, and it was supposed to be something else. It was actually said to be The Conjuring, but then Warner Brothers pulled out for whatever reason last minute, and they had to change it up and make it the Hive. Either way, I loved it. I love that house. But moving on to letter F spot for HHN28, that was actually Slaughter Cinema, again in the tent. Slaughter Cinema, man, that house was cool. The facade outside was an old drive-in movie theater, and you walked into all these made-up B horror movies, and it was fun. It was a really fun time for me. And before every scene, you would see a poster of the movie you were about to walk into, and there was always an announcer that would announce the movie, like Cult of the Beast, baby.
Something else to take in mind with those, like, they can't clash. You can't have two fake movies too similar to each other. They have to be like a potpourri, so they pulled that off. There's enough variety.
And this is the house that actually created the Yeti franchise at Horror Nights, because the very last movie you would walk into was Attack of the Swamp Yeti.
Hold on, you're saying this is the origin?
This is where it originated, yeah. Everybody loved the Swamp Yeti scene, that it actually became Yeti Terror of the Yukon at HHN29, and then we got Yeti Campground Kills this past year.
No way. Okay, I know we've probably gone over that, but I didn't realize that was the initial Prometheus of the Yeti.
That was the first time.
Dang, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have any thoughts about Slaughter Cinema, or anything you can remember that you loved, or just memories in general?
I'm gonna be Debbie Downer, I guess. But
okay.
I mean, it was cool, and you go through and you see you see your trail mix of campy, non-serious spooks, which is good. But again, it's that anthology kind of thing with me, because they're all separate. It's not like they're all a team or they broke out and they're, I don't know. It's like you're walking through like photo ops kind of situation. You're like, okay, now we're here. Oh, that's done. Here's the next one. That's done. For me, that it's not bad. It's just it's not as, I don't know. I can't word it exactly, but I don't like when things are cut up. I like them to be either, like, even the Universal monsters. Those are separate guys, but they're still working together. They're like in the same scene, you know.
So this house you didn't really like. So this would have been toward the bottom of your list if you were to make a list for that
Yeah,
year.
yeah.
Okay.
Honestly,
Okay, interesting.
that's probably opposite from you because you like enjoyed the crap out of those B movies.
I had Slaughter Cinema in the middle of the pack at number 5 for
Okay.
that year. So I mean, it wasn't like I loved it, but I did like it. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But this is kind of interesting because I had the Hive at number 5 and I had Slaughter Cinema at number 5.
Oh, okay.
So I feel like this might be a little controversial for the HHN fan base, and people are gonna tell us that we're wrong. But
Yeah.
I think Hive might have been a little better for me.
Me too.
And you obviously pick Hive,
I mean, yeah.
so people are gonna yell at us for this because so many people love Slaughter Cinema, and I do too. It's not.
I didn't. No, I did not dislike it. It's just not a horror house. You know, it's not a haunted house.
It was a lot of comedic moments from these B movies.
Yeah. Like
So
as much of a hater as I seem to be, I have my standards. I got like a house has to be scary and it has to tell a story pretty decently. And when it gets muddied, well, not that Slaughterhouse Cinema was muddy. I'm just talking about like Blumhouse really and other anthologies. But the Slaughterhouse is a good starting point. Is it? I like how it exists so that it can inspire other fully fleshed stuff. You know, it's like a pitch house really. For a horror house, for a haunted house, it's like lower on the on that regard.
no hate at all. I'm personally gonna pick Hive, and I know if people listen to this, they are gonna be like, "What the hell is wrong with these guys?" But it was our first year, and I think that has a lot to do with why I like this one more. It was one of the first houses. It holds a special place in my heart, man. Yeah, it's got to go to Hive, and when I look back at HHN28, Slaughter Cinema is definitely a plus of an overall experience. As the overall experience, I love Slaughter Cinema, and that to me does give a little props to HHN28. But if I were to compare the two, Hive is my favorite.
I concur. Less.
All right, so the next one we're going to be talking about. I'm excited for this. Letter G at HHN27 was. It's got to be my top 3 all timer. It could be my number 1 favorite house. It was Scarecrow the Reaping.
No. The Reapening, right?
The Reaping.
Wasn't it the Reapening? I know on the posters and on these things, it's all saying reaping. But when I was looking back, like on the videos and like at the time, it was Reapening, and I was wondering why didn't that register as like a weird funky word, because it's kind of neat. It's like reaping, so it's ripen, and it's like the reaper. It's like a combination, Reapening.
I don't know where you saw that, but on this map it says the Reaping.
Yeah,
I
I
always
know.
remembered it as the Reaping. Is there some kind of Mandela effect happening here?
Maybe if anyone else remembers the Reapening, or if I'm just so dumb, but no, because it made sense. Like it's like growth and death, like in that house. So it's like it makes sense. Reapening is like a pumpkin grim reaper or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. I was just like intrigued by that weird word, and I was like, why didn't I would have appreciated that more.
Scarecrow the Reaping. I believe we only did this 2 or 3 times, because this one always did have a long line because it was a fan favorite that year. It was by far the scariest house, I believe, of that year. And it was just so cool. I mean, the facade outside, they grew corn just for this house. They grew this field of corn. They put a windmill in front of the tent to make it look legit. And what made it even cooler was a hurricane hit at the beginning of the event and destroyed the corn, and it made it look better. It made it look like old rundown farm. But a couple things I remember about this house. It was very dark throughout the house. Scarecrows would pop out through the wheat and the grass, and I just remember them being just brutal.
That hurricane said, "Get that corn out of my face."
It's that corn, man. It's that corn.
Hey, I got a tagline too for that one. You reap what you crow. Scarecrow, the reapening. You reap what you crow. Am I wrong? Was it not reapening? I think it was.
I don't think it was, but it could be this Mandela effect.
I know it's different on the posters and some of the things, but at the time I was looking into it. Some of them said reapening, not posters. I mean, but I don't know. Maybe someone spelled it wrong. I like it though. Reapening, it fits.
Another memory I have of this house was there was a point in the house where you could hear the sound of crows flying around you, and they were pooping on you. They had water dripping on you that was warm. They like warmed up the water, and when it fell on you, it felt like bird poop.
So sick.
Yeah. And of course, they also had the stuff and face effects where it felt like you were walking through webs and stuff. It was just overall an amazing house. Apparently, we missed out on something. At the beginning of the event, there was a dueling dragon situation with this house.
At the front?
There was 2 pathways at the end of the house. Apparently. I don't know how true this is. I think it only lasted a night or 2. But for whatever reason, after so many nights, they closed off one of the pathways and it was only 1.
Where was it split at? Was it like at the end the same way? Or
I think so. I think it was toward the end.
Ooh. Is that true?
I have no idea. It's just what I've heard, what I've read. Don't know.
Urban legends.
Scarecrow the Reaping.
Reapening. Come on, say it once. It sounds good.
Scarecrow the Reaping.
It's pretty fun. It's a pretty good name. Reapening.
What do you think, James? Scarecrow.
Dude, how have they not done scarecrows before? It's innovative. You got to find what falls through the cracks. What you haven't done. It's good. And with the corn.
There is no doubt in my mind. This will be a sequel at some point. They will make a sequel to this house. I don't know when, but it's gonna happen. It was too much of a fan favorite.
It's iconic.
Yeah. All right. And then going from Scarecrow the Reapening to HHN28's Dead Exposure Patient Zero, which was a prequel house to the original Dead Exposure house. I remember you walking in and you would be greeted by a mist, which was supposed to be an antidote, so you wouldn't get the virus as you walked through. That was the idea. I believe that's how it went. But you were walking through a lab and you could hear monkeys. So apparently it originated from the monkeys. And then I think it took place in Paris. So you walk through, Paris being overrun by this new virus. But one thing this house did a lot was strobe effects. So it was constant strobes in this house, lots of black light used. So it was very dark, and the only way that the house was lit up most of the time was by strobes. That did make it a scary house that year. But overall, it's a no-brainer for me, man. Scarecrow, the Reaping.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to go to that, man. I mean, I did love Dead Exposure, but it was number 6 that year for me. It's got to go Scarecrow, man.
I like it. Yeah, can't compete with the corn lore. That helps it, not just the house itself, but what they do around it and like what happens. That hurricane, iconic.
So we both agree, Scarecrow, by far the winner here.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, so that covers 7 of the houses. So now we're gonna go ahead and move on to the 8th house. Let's see, how are we gonna do this here? So the next house, we're going to have to only talk about HHN28 this time because we have reached the 10th house that was added at HHN28. So this is a brand new location that wasn't there for HHN27. This is the new parade building. First time it was used as a haunted house, and that is Seeds of Extinction from 28, and this is the one with all the plants that were overgrown in like the mall. And this was one of my favorite houses. I think it was just absolutely beautiful, just the detail, and also how blended all the scare actors were with all the greenery. Like they were full on just like green monsters. And the story of this house was apparently a meteor had come down, hit the earth, and released this epidemic or this deadly plant that took over the earth, basically. Oh, the bus. The bus was outside. I just remembered that.
Yeah, it was like
I was trying
crashed
to think
into the.
where was the bus, and it was outside, and then they had like a projection on the wall of the house telling you about the story. Yeah, I totally remember that now. That just came back to me.
Yeah, I think it was supposed to be like crash through the wall, or so it's supposed to look like.
Maybe, yeah, I think so. I think you're right. I have to go back and look at like pictures or a video or something.
You see, that's the first that I remember of the bus, but every year it's done that, or like every year since. I don't know. I don't know what it was.
The bus was at 27. It was in a scare zone,
Oh, okay.
which we'll talk about. So again, this was a great house. I had it at number 2 at HHN28. So what would you say about this house? Like, is it up there? I mean, this is going to be kind of weird because we can't really compare it to 27. We can do a battle with 32 with it, but this is kind of an extra point in a way, but not really. Just
Yeah,
because,
how do we divide that point?
I don't know. Is it a plus for 30? I mean, for 28?
Well, you know how you talk about your thrown together houses? This is a like a bonus extra house. So where does that fall as far as like rushedness? Was it rushed or no?
No, this was a plan that they wanted to do a 10th house, so it wasn't like a last minute thing. And like I said, I enjoyed it. It was number 2 on my list that year.
See, so it is a point. It's a plus, but it's not fair. I don't know. Maybe put that as a asterisk. I don't know.
Yeah,
A bonus point. I don't know.
a bonus point.
But it's separate from the standard comparing points.
Yeah. But any other thoughts for this house?
The biggest impression I get is the bus, and I don't know why. The bus is the thing I remember most vividly with the vines. Very overgrown, and it crashed, and it's been a while. The entrance, I think, is the biggest impression I got. I don't know why. I don't know. It's muddy. The rest of it.
Moving on to the next house. 8th house for HHN27 and 9th house for 28.
Is this gonna get weird? Are we like crossing letters now? We're gonna compare like one year's H to this one's I, or how the location is gonna line up.
So now we're basically comparing locations.
Yeah.
Now. So next up would be the old parade building, and 27 it was Ash versus Evil Dead, and I guarantee you this year that house we saw the most, for sure. We did it over and over again because it had the longest line. I'm so tired. It had the shortest line and
just the longest walk.
The longest walk, I guess, is what I was trying to get at.
Yeah, it's like you're walking a long way, but the line is short. I don't know. Pros and cons.
I just remember loving this house because we had recently binged Ash vs. Evil Dead. This wasn't a big fan favorite for people, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. Of course, it was like the comedy house of this year. I think I remember you being a little tired of it at a certain point because I guess we were doing it a lot. But
if I was tired,
it was a house to do.
If I was tired, I wasn't tired of it. It was probably just me. But I will say I rewatched one of the walkthroughs. I didn't see the butt scene. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where the cadaver falls.
Was it? I don't think that was in the house. I think that
it was definitely.
It was because that's in season 3. I don't think season 3 had come out in 2017.
Well, I remember there was a guy with the butt over his head, and his head was through the stomach, and I was like, "Oh, they did it!" And he was an actor with the big puppet butt, and it was like, I can't believe it.
If he was in the house, maybe he just wasn't there that night when they were filming, or just
because he wasn't in that certain walkthrough that I saw. So I was like, man, maybe I'm lucky.
Outside, it had the car that Ash drives, which was cool. And I remember as soon as you walk in, you walk through the actual trailer that he lives in.
Yeah, that was my favorite house.
That was your favorite house?
I think so. I mean, Ash, I couldn't believe. I mean, it was a funny house, and it was like there he is everywhere, Bruce Campbell.
I mean, I just remember being fun. It took us to the cabin. It took us just to a bunch of important parts of the show, and then at the very end, I remember walking out of the house, thinking it was over, and then there was one last scare outside.
I don't remember the outside scare.
Or one last scene. Great house. We did it a lot. We did it the most.
The location adds to it because it's like desolate and it's way out there. It's kind of like, you're going to a abandoned trailer and there's nasty stuff going on.
So the following year, this location had Trick or Treat. This is coming after the Scare Zone, which we'll talk about later. But they did the Trick or Treat Haunted House for 28. I love that movie. I think it's one of the best Halloween films to watch during the Halloween season, beside Halloween. I think this house hit all the major plot points of the movie, and I think it did it well. I remember they built a whole school bus in there that was like sinking into the lake, into the quarry. There was just a lot of cool things that they threw in here, like the whole werewolf scene.
Yeah.
However, it was one of the weaker houses to me that year. Although it's perfect for Halloween, has the Halloween vibes, I just don't think it was the best out of that year. Although I still liked it.
Less scary, right? More of a tribute.
Right, and so this actually fell to number 9 that year for me.
It's harsh, but it speaks to it.
What about you?
I liked it. I was new to seeing it, so it was fresh in my head. And I like the house front. In the front, you're like in the park.
Yeah. That was a really cool thing that I remember about entering that house. As soon as you enter that old man's house, and you see the stairway, and Sam is at the top of the stairway, and then the old guy shoots at him, and when he shoots, he just disappears. Like they did some kind of weird mirror trick.
Yeah, I think he was hiding to the left too, like down the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
But that one, it wasn't really part of the house. It was just like an extra before.
Yeah.
And walking through the house, you feel like you're intruding, so it's already uncomfortable. And then, pretty cool. It's a creative one. I won't go crazy for it, but yeah, it's artsy, that one.
I guess we are going to kind of agree on the better one, or the one we think is above the other.
Yeah, definitely Ash versus.
Yeah, I would think Ash vs. Evil Dead wins. And again, yeah. I don't think, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if these points between these are going to count to the overall, but I think it's definitely going to help decide which one is our favorite. Which there is a very, very obvious winner of houses right now. But we got one more round to talk about for the house, and that is going to be the Shrek location. And to me, this is an absolute obvious winner between the two. Although one of them, the winner is not the greatest house of all time, but the other one is not good, in my opinion. So HHN27 at the Shrek location was Saw. I believe that we only did this house once. I don't think we did it twice, if I'm remembering correctly. But I do remember not liking it as much as everything else. Definitely the weakest, and I put it at number 9, the last spot for the rankings that year. And to be honest, I think this is number 3 of my least favorite houses of all time that I've done.
Whoa, ever?
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. I can get that. That one was weird because it was kind of like an art gallery and a museum of these specific torture devices that this serial killer used, and they were all on display one by one after the other. It felt like a gallery.
And I didn't rewatch a walkthrough for this, but the way I remembering it, it was a lot of stuff like behind cages, and there wasn't a whole lot of stuff popping out. It was just the kills, the traps.
Yeah, I watched this walkthrough, and it made me think of if you've seen like some modern art memes. Like there's some people that do like weird. They'll knock a bowl over, and that's art, right? Like performance art or whatever. Can you imagine going through one of those, and there's people like with actual torture devices, like, and you think, oh, that's cool, that's art, and like they're performing good, but it's just a gallery of people with timers about to like go off. That's what it felt like, and we can't help. We're just the passerby.
So, Saw at HHN27. Moving over to HHN28, we have Halloween 4: The Return of Michael Myers. I mean, to me, you can't go wrong with Michael. It was a recreation of the 4th movie, which I'm a big fan of. I think it's an underrated sequel to the Halloween series, so it's really cool that they brought part 4 to the event.
Yeah, and that one specifically.
They covered all the scenes, all the important scenes very well. I think it was limited a little bit because of the Shrek location, but I mean, I had fun with it for what it was. I had it at number 8 that year, so it was still lower on the list, but I still enjoyed it. But between the two houses, it's got to be Halloween because yeah, Saw is no.
Yeah, and Halloween at any time, as long as they don't flub it too bad. Like Halloween during Halloween Horror Nights is kind of a no-brainer. It's like not fair almost.
All right, so that is all the houses as far as 27 and 28. So going over the points that we got here, HHN 27 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 winners, and 28 has 1, 2, 3, 4 winners with an asterisk on Seeds of Extinction. So really 5 if you want to count that.
Wow.
So
Wait,
so
27's ahead?
by a good amount.
Wow, they beat the Stranger Things year.
Yeah.
Dang.
It was our first year too, so
I'm saying it like it wasn't there.
So HHN28 has 4 official points, right? One of those points is a tie for Poltergeist and Dead Waters because we couldn't decide which one was better.
I would say Poltergeist. If I'm the deciding vote between them two, I think Poltergeist leans.
So do you want to make that
favorite.
official? You want to give the point to 28 Poltergeist? I think I can go. I think I can deal with that. I mean, I love Dead Waters so much, but Poltergeist.
Yeah, I gotta give it to Poltergeist.
Okay, so we'll take the tie point away from 27 and give it completely to Poltergeist at 28. So officially, HHN 28 has 4 points with an asterisk, and 27 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points.
Dang, that's almost a tie,
for
kind of. That asterisk, that
So
is a
technically
bonus
it's
point,
tie.
but it's against nothing, so it's like not fair at that point. So it's like a wild card. It's a technical tie, but I think 27 tips it a little bit, right? Because if 27 had check it out, if 27 had a bonus year, even if it was crappy, it would level up. I think against 28.
But here's the thing: we're not done talking about these years because we still got Scare
That's true.
Zones shows, stuff like that. So let's go over that right now. Let's move over to Scare Zones. The opening zone, I don't even know how you would compare this or give points to this because it's almost the same exact zone. So for 27, right next to the Shrek area was Altars of Horror, and for 28 it was the Harvest. And basically these were preview zones. They just had all the characters from the event. And I specifically remember 27 having all the signs of the IPs like in a row. And I think 28 did too, except 28, they made it kind of look like almost like a barn where there was hay everywhere. And I don't know how to make this one win. I almost want to give the point personally to 27 Altars of Horror because I remember hanging out in there more. And it had the 2 Shining girls walking around. It had Bagul in there.
And you liked
from
that?
Sinister. Yeah.
You liked the trail mix of adults walking around in their Halloween costumes.
Between the two, they both were a trail mix of people.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Something about it just looked like a cosplay, like a convention or something. It didn't look like intentional. It was just thrown, like a melting pot. That one I wasn't into.
So you would give it to the Harvest?
I mean, I know it doesn't have all the icons, but I think so. Just the way they handled it.
I mean, it was the same. It had characters from the event, like all the IP characters kind of walking around. But I don't specifically remember which ones they were. The one that I remember most is Altars of Horror, which is why I was going to give that point to it. But if you have an argument, maybe I'll go with yours.
Okay, honestly, I'm trying to remember the Harvest. It
was the most basic scare zone right next to Shrek. It had all the signs of all the properties, and it had like hay bales everywhere, but all the characters from around the event were walking around in there.
Were there tall ones?
Maybe?
Stilts?
Wait a minute.
Because I remember the Stranger Things sign that we took a picture.
Maybe I'm remembering this wrong. So they did have all the signs of the IPs, but I think the scare actors in that zone of the Harvest were original. Like they were more of like Harvest characters.
Yeah, like a big pumpkin head, I think.
But
and
that was
inside was
that was in another scare zone that year. So that also makes me think that this, I don't know, it's hard to remember this one.
If we're comparing like a coterie of villains, clustered in one scare zone, between IPs like the twins, ghosts, and then all these characters, and then original potpourri, I would go with original, I think.
So you want to give it to the Harvest?
I think I do.
Okay, I'm honestly cool with that, I think. Just because these are one and the same for me.
Okay. If I'm keeping track, that is a point in favor for the asterisk year, 28.
Yes.
All right.
So now we are going to the New York zone, which is the biggest zone every year. And 27 was The Purge. I freaking love this zone. I remember hanging out in there so much. I remember it was always, for whatever reason, I just remember it being cold outside and hanging out in there. They had the bus in that zone, and they built a platform on top of the bus for like the leader of the Purge, or to announce people being captured and killed.
Yeah.
And this zone just had chaos everywhere, like everywhere. And this was the last year for them to use all of New York. Like, they used those down streets.
Oh yeah, they don't do that?
No. There was a whole scene where a big giant truck would drive in, and scare actors would throw people into the truck.
Yeah, they blended in like normal humans, like just victims, and they were grabbing them. You know, you can't tell who's safe.
This was the absolute best way to represent the Purge at HHN. And if I'm not mistaken, this was a scare zone beforehand, a couple years before this. So maybe people were tired of it and weren't ready for it, but this was our first experience with it, so we loved it. It's something I'm always going to remember.
That was a good year.
So we are putting the Purge up against Vamp 85 from 28.
Oh, crap. This is a tough one.
So Vamps in the 80s, dressed up like 80s icons, 80s music.
Oh no!
There was a whole dance show where they would dance to AC/DC, I believe it was.
They had Freddie Mercury, right?
Yeah, Freddie Mercury walking around. They had Prince walking around. So then they had the actual ball drop like it was New Year's Eve, and when the ball would drop, the vampires would go nuts and start eating up everybody.
Dude, oh no.
Personally, God, I loved Vamp 85, but I think I'm going to give it to The Purge. I think I had more fun in The Purge. I think there was more chaos in The Purge, but I don't know. They're so close, and I have fond memories of both of them. But I really want to give the point to The Purge, I feel like. I feel like there was more entertainment there, maybe? I don't know. And again, The Purge had way more space used. Like, they used those down streets where, like, the Blues Brothers stages and Finnegan's is and all that.
I remember that year I posted not the Freddy or Chucky you'd expect from a Halloween Horror Nights. And it was the Chucky that I'd won at the carnival or something, you know, the Chucky from Rugrats.
Yeah.
And then it was that Freddie Mercury, and he did the pose, and he was all zombie.
Oh, okay. So
that was sick.
That's Vamp 85. That's a...
Yeah, that was super cool, but... Oh, man. No, I'm going to agree with The Purge. That is, like, the world building. It was fully realized. The Vamp 85, it was kind of... I mean, it was awesome, but there were more, like, mascots walking around, you know? I mean, they were very fun mascots, but it wasn't like you're walking into a world that hasn't been done right. Also, I want to preemptively, you know, Vamp 69, flawless. Vamp 85, I think, was on its way.
Yeah, I think it was great, but I think 69 beats 85, so, yeah.
Yeah, I'm Purge. Team Purge.
Yeah, we'll give it to The Purge. All right, moving on to the next zone, which are two different locations. There was 5 zones each years, but this third zone in particular was a different location each of the years. So, but we'll put them together first, make them fight against each other. This next one at HHN27 was Invasion, and it was right in the San Francisco area in front of the now Fast and Furious exit. Invasion, a lot of people like this zone for some reason, but I always thought it was kind of just dull. It had a cool set piece. It was like this crashed UFO that lit up off to the side, and there was these really tall aliens in cloaks that looked like the typical 50s old style alien.
And I'm glad you said it was a little dull, because like I didn't want to hate on it, because it is kind of cool. I mean, it's like, it's a little Invasion, but it's dorky. It's not very, I mean, Killer Clowns killed it more than this one did, and this is supposed to be aliens.
Out of the scare zones for 27. It definitely
Oh.
wasn't the best. And
And this is directly against Killer Clowns. I'm looking.
yes, we haven't talked about that yet, but yes.
Because I just mentioned it just off the cuff, like out of the whole analog, but
Yep.
there it is.
This is absolutely up against Killer Clowns from Outer Space, which was in a different location. It was still against the lagoon, but it was in a location that they've only used this once. And I personally love that zone. Can't go wrong with Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Love the movie. I love the cotton candy cocoons, the goofy clowns with the little...
Hey, and they were menacing. They were large. You didn't want to get close to them, and then they were there. It was like they move quick.
Anyway, yeah, between those two, I think that's an easy point.
Yeah, I didn't mean to, like, already... I mean, I was comparing it to Killer Clowns before I realized that was its competitor. Because it's like another invasion is like the same category. Aliens.
So this next scare zone, they're actually pretty similar to each other. Same location, but same type of vibes. So this is going to be an interesting battle. In the Central Park area with all the trees at HHN27 was Trick or Treat. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful zone. Lit by all the pumpkins in the trees with some additional purple, maybe orange lighting. But it had all these little mini scenes from the movie. I think it was a lot of fun. I actually enjoyed the zone more than I did the house. And again, I always recall when I think of this, just the chill in the air, the coldness, and I think that always added to the vibe. I guess I should explain that. We went the last week, as we always do, and there was a nice cold front there that year. So I always remember it being cold during all this stuff. So that's Trick or Treat, and then with 28, we have Twisted Tradition, which is another Halloween-esque scare zone that also had pumpkins in the trees, but was an original scare zone. At the front of the scare zone, they had this like abandoned church. This is the one with the stilt walkers with the glowing pumpkin heads.
That's right.
And a bunch of pumpkin characters. There was like some with like the innards of the pumpkin like coming out. This is a hard one.
Those pumpkin heads are cool because like the heads inside had like a gooey mask to hide the face, and it like blended in with the pumpkin head. That you notice the head first, of course, and then the inside's goopy, and there's the human face. Yeah. Trick or Treat's weird because it was a house, and then now we're comparing it. Well, we're not comparing it to the scare zone, but I'm saying because it already existed, now it's a scare zone. You kind of have to think like what worked better, house or scare zone. I think the scare zone worked better. So like with that in mind, versus
Twisted Tradition, which is a very similar zone. It still had pumpkins in the trees. It just had these pumpkin creatures roaming around, but it also had an extra set piece outside of the trees that was like an old church, creepy looking church. Had like a truck in front of it.
I think it has to be Trick or Treat.
I think so, just because of the IP. I love the IP.
Also, the vomiting kid, that's the no-brainer. That wins everything. He's
right.
Gurgling there with the chocolate puke.
I love that. The only thing that I'm kind of bummed out about is some of the costumes in Twisted Traditions were really cool, like with the glowing pumpkin stilt walker.
Yeah, but is coolness alone enough, versus this other thing that's cool, and it has nostalgia with it, and it's...
With the nostalgia... And it being our first year and seeing that scare zone being so amazing and immersive and beautiful, yeah, I think I got to give it to Trick or Treat as well. So that's a very close battle there, but I think Trick or Treat wins that one. You're going to love this next battle. So HHN27 in the Hollywood section of the park was Festival of the Deadliest. To me, this was a very weird zone. It had the unofficial icon or mascot. They named him Bones, basically the stilt walker with a skull head and a scythe. But there was these weird antler girls in white dresses like dancing around like flames, and it was an interesting zone to say the least. Very unique. I remember it being kind of dark in the zone. It was cool. We were in there every now and then. I enjoyed it, but its competitor, Revenge of Chucky at HHN28.
The girls, did they have hooves?
I don't think so.
Alright, skip it.
Revenge of Chucky, absolutely incredibly fun.
Yeah.
All his toys, his possessed toys and characters walking around.
Yeah.
He had his own little stage show that he would just talk crap to the audience, talk crap to James.
Yeah, you got me.
The monkeys walking around, his workers walking around. The
Oh man, the
the
one-armed
broken
ballerina.
the broken ballerina. There's a lot of cool stuff of this zone, and there was a certain part where he would bring everybody in to do his like little chant, his little ritual, and I remember all the lights going down, and like there would be a crash of lightning and thunder. It was just a cool effect and cool show that they had, and this was the zone that we closed out HHN28 in, and I will always remember that with all the characters, going crazy and then hugging and crying at the end.
With all the assistants he has, you would think someone could hold a microphone for his guests. Everyone was yelling and he was having trouble. I feel bad for the puppet guy in there. He's like, "Excuse me, what?" Like he has to say 3 times before he knows what they're saying, and he's like, "Okay, next." I love the guy. His improvising was great. I love that setup, but to make it work better, like just take care of that audio. Do it again, please. But that was a very fun zone.
Obvious winner, Chucky.
Dadoy. Chucky.
All right,
King
so that
Chucky.
that concludes the scare zones. Let's go ahead and jump right into shows, because this is going to be an easy victor for me, and I'm pretty sure for you. 27 was the final year of Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure. It was the 26th time they had it at the event. Our first time seeing it, and last, unfortunately.
Man.
But it was so much fun. I believe we saw it twice, and it was just a blast. Very SNL-esque type jokes, lots of comedy, but there was also the fire and the dancing and stunts and stuff. So it had all of that. And
You know what it is? It's because they're just dudes, and there they are on the stage. It's like if anyone in the audience wandered on stage, that would be our experience. It's like they're vicariously like going through this wild explosion of a show, and we're there with them in their commentary. It's like Beavis and Butthead watching music videos, and we don't have that anymore. We just have the show and no one to watch it with. We need that avatar, we need Bill and Ted.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure is absolutely, for me, going to win for the competitor, which is Academy of Villains. Academy of Villains Cyberpunk was at 28. No, I'm sorry. No. And in addition to Bill and Ted at 27, there was a second show, which was Academy of Villains. But just the fact they had 2 shows that year is also a plus, I would say. And 28 was only Academy of Villains.
Mm-hmm. No. You can't beat Bill and Ted, and that's just the iceberg. It has a whole life. Yeah, that's not fair. That's not even a fair comparison. The 1 year alone, if you're taking that by itself, like if it was brand new, it came and went first and last year ever, still the winner. Mm-hmm. But yeah, its legacy is you can't do it.
Unmatched.
Yeah.
All right, and you had mentioned that you wanted to talk about food, right?
A little bit, yeah.
As far as I can recall, pizza fries were really the only thing at 27. However, 28 had Stranger Things foods. It still had pizza fries, and I believe it was the first year of s'mores fries, was 28. But in addition to that, it had some waffle sticks. It had this waffle ice cream sundae. It had waffle slushies, candy corn slushies, stuff like that.
Eggo will never experience what it did during that time.
Yeah. So
that's peak waffle.
As far as the food goes, I feel like 28 beats that. Now, something 27 had that 28 didn't was something that a lot of people didn't like, but I kind of liked it. It was the weird half cup with the 2 separate drinks.
Oh, yeah.
The alcoholic drinks. That was at
Those
27.
Those are fun because you can try one and the other and then both.
A lot of people didn't like those. They complained about it, and that's probably why we haven't seen it again.
Just make it round. The square is not the best thing to hold, but I like the half thing. The squares kind of suck, honestly. I will give it that.
So food and beverage, what are we doing here?
Well, I mean, obviously the Stranger Things racket of food, but I wasn't trying to compare foods like to weigh the thing. I was just trying to think like how far back did they start innovating with the food, because it wasn't always. They started like taking the menu as like a sandbox to play with. They're doing all these experiments and cool stuff.
So that concludes us talking about all of 27 and 28 together. So the question is, where do these fall? So let me go over everything. Okay, so HHN27. I'm going to list everything of the event just to recap what was there, and then I'll say what the winners were. Does that make sense? That way we can still look at it overall. Because I feel like even if they're not winners, they still need to be part of the overall experience, because that could still add to it. So HHN27, we had American Horror Story, The Shining, The Fallen, Dead Waters, Blumhouse Volume 1, The Hive, Scarecrow, Ash vs. Evil Dead, Saw for the houses. Then we have The Altars of Horror, Scare Zone, Purge, Invasion, Trick or Treat, Festival of the Deadliest, and we got Bill and Ted as the show. So as far as the winners of that year, we have The Shining, Blumhouse, Hive, Scarecrow, Ash vs. Evil Dead, then Scare Zone's The Purge, Trick or Treat, and then we got Bill and Ted. So the count is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then for HHN28, there was Stranger Things Volume 1, Carnival Graveyard, Scary Tales, Poltergeist, Blumhouse 2, Slaughter Cinema, Dead Exposure, Seeds of Extinction, Trick or Treat, and Halloween 4. Then we have The Harvest, Vamp 85, Killer Clowns, Twisted Tradition, and Chucky. And then there was Academy of Villains. So the winners were Stranger Things, Scary Tales, Poltergeist, Halloween 4, and Seeds of Extinction with an asterisk. Then the Harvest, Killer Clowns, and Chucky. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points with an asterisk. So really 8 and 8.
Ooh, man. What are your thoughts right now?
Of course, this would happen where the events are literally tied by points.
Yeah, what the heck? It's spliced in different places, and it's still half and half.
Yes, that's is. I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to go about this. I mean, HHN28 had an extra house. Does that give it a point? Does that give it a whole extra point up?
It tilts the scales, but there's still
as an overall experience.
Here's what I say: the Scare Zones, 3 out of 5 tilts the thing.
That's true.
I mean, Bill and Ted also tilts it back though. But
with 27, the best Scare Zones that year were Purge and Trick or Treat. Solid Scare Zones. But would you even want to even count HHN28's The Harvest?
No, but
that's the third Scare Zone that won versus the Killer Clowns and Chucky.
I'm leaning towards 28 because Purge and Trick or Treat I don't think are enough. Like, even though they balance out Harvest isn't. Okay, let me see.
But what about the show? Bill and Ted was 27.
Oh man, the 2 versus 2, but then they got the Bill and Ted, so it's back over there.
Mm-hmm. And let's look at houses. I mean, there was Blumhouse Volume 2 at 28, but then there was also Saw at 27.
Saw was worse than Blumhouse 2.
Yes, I agree with that.
Oh, and it's the Stranger Things year.
It's the Stranger Things year. We got Scary Tales, Poltergeist. It's also the Poltergeist year.
Oh.
Slaughter Cinema, Dead Exposure, Trick or Treat as a haunted house, Halloween 4 as a haunted house. But then you go to 27, and you have big houses like The Shining. You have Dead Waters with that amazing facade and just beautiful house. You got Ash vs. Evil Dead. You have Scarecrow, one of my favorite houses of all time. You got The Hive, and then you also have The Purge, Trick or Treat as Scare Zones, and then Bill and Ted as a show.
How about put Shining against Poltergeist? What do you say?
Poltergeist, man. It's gotta be.
Yeah, you can't beat that icy room. I don't care what they say. If it was, ooh, that was an accident. It goes perfectly with the story.
If you were to put Scarecrow up against Poltergeist, man, 2 totally different ball games there.
How about the Chainsaw Clowns? The Chainsaw Clowns was 27, yeah?
Yes, and then 28 had the Carnies with chainsaws in Simpsons. I forgot, we didn't talk about that. We didn't talk about the bonus Scare Zone with the chainsaws.
Yeah, that's a factor.
Ooh. Dang, that's a good point. We never wrote that down. So the clowns with chainsaws versus carnies with chainsaws.
Clowns versus carnies.
I'm giving it to clowns. I think that was the coolest one. So.
No question. They got the face mask going on under the nose, like upside down eyes and faces. I like all that. It's weird.
So that automatically gives HHN27 9 points out of 8.
Oh.
9 points, and HHN28 has 8.
You know, if I'm comparing the two chainsaw hordes, I never thought I'd say those words. If I'm comparing the two chainsaw hordes, obviously it's the clowns, but it's not like a runaway. You know, the carnies are on the clowns' tails with those chainsaws. They're like nipping hairs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're still chainsaws. It's not like what we got recently. Like, the chainsaws are great. I don't think that's enough to tilt it all the way to 27. I don't think that's a deciding factor. Oh, man. Wait a minute. I don't know why, but I'm leaning towards 28. Maybe just because I had gotten my bearings a little bit more having done it the year before, you know? I was like, the first year you go, you're like looking everywhere, you don't know, you're learning. And it was like overwhelming how good it was. So that's like, you know, the freshness, look past the freshness, you know, having experienced 1 year and then going in, I don't know.
So I never thought I would say this. This is harder to rank than doing house list. This is insane.
Yeah, the whole thing. I don't know why I'm leaning towards 28, but
I'm personally leaning more toward 27, and I think we're just going to have to be disagreeing. I think yours is going to have to be the winner. Your winner is 28. I think mine is going to have to be 27.
Wow.
And I always said that I think 28 was my winner. And I mean, looking back at it, talking about it, I think 27 might be it.
And I thought the opposite, I think. Like, I was always the chainsaw clowns and the pizza fries. You can't top it. That's like peak. But I think it's just because of the first time I got there and I didn't know. There's like a lot more. There's everything of that year. I mean, obviously not everything exact, but like the quality-wise, we're looking, it's like about a tie. Like, take off the faces of the Guess Who, it's like it matches up. You know, it's about the same quality and like amount of things. I wonder if every year is this way, because there was a lot that you can cross compare. They're like twins almost.
I mean, this is incredibly hard for me. Like, there's some greats in here for 27, but I think the overall, having Scarecrow, having The Purge, having Trick or Treat Scare Zone, having Bill and Ted, The Shining, Dead Waters, there's so many greats there that although there's not as much stuff at 27, the first-hand experience of HHN, like the first time going, the nostalgia factor of that, and remembering how cold and how great the weather was, I personally kind of want to give it to 27. I mean, Poltergeist is another all-timer from 28, though. But after that, I think the only all-timer from 28 for me is the Chucky Scare Zone. Maybe Stranger Things, but as far as all-timers go, like, there's a lot of good stuff at 28. But how much great stuff was there at 28 versus how much great stuff was there at 27?
I gotta sway, I think, to 27.
So you are gonna go to 27.
Bill and Ted was phenomenal. I was trying to. It's our first year there, and I didn't want to give that nostalgia points. I'm trying to take that, but nostalgia or not.
I mean, for me, these years are nearly tied. Like, if I have to pick a winner.
Yeah, if you're picking 27 and I'm more or less undecided, like I'm not being swayed. I'm taking the factors. There was the chainsaws, pizza fries for the first time.
Only pizza fries, and then that half and half drink thing.
Yeah, the half and half is a plus also. That tilts the scales. Like, people won't agree. A lot of people don't think that, but it was cool. No, that was a good year. They didn't have Stranger Things, which, you know, they nailed the first one.
They both have amazing house lineups. Like,
I'll give it to 27.
Yeah, I think for now I'm gonna go with 27.
If I was a time traveler and I could go to any of these again, 27.
It would be 27. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, look at it that way. Like, if you had to pick out of these two, you would pick that one.
I think I would. The Chainsaw Clowns are unique to that year, and they haven't topped it since. It's just been on a decline.
So I agree. 27 is a very, very close winner to me for 28. All right, so now we kind of know our conclusion here with HHN 27 and 28. As of now, we are saying 27 is our favorite of those 2 years, although it's very close to me. 28 is a phenomenal year that I'll always remember.
Yeah, that was a hard choice. I didn't want to give it just because it's the first year, but overall, yeah, I have to do 27.
since we've been talking about this for so long, let's end it here. And we're going to do a part 2 to this episode where we do a verses for 32.
Yeah, if you're still here after all these back and forths, then that means you enjoyed it. So we'll do it again back to back. But I don't want to change up the system. I don't want to do lineup versus lineup. This was cool. The locations.
Yeah. All right. So thank you, everybody, for listening to the episode. We hope you enjoyed. We're not sure if you're still around, still listening, but we had a good time kind of comparing our first 2 years. Stay tuned for the next episode where we talk about the most recent year, HHN32, comparing it to 27 and maybe even a little bit of 28.
Which is right now, we're not taking a break. It's just the illusion of like, okay, we're stopping. We need a break. We'll come back like later. No, we're still going. Just so you know.
Follow us on our social medias. We are on Instagram at HHN Obsession and on Twitter as HHN Obsession. And just recently, we have joined Blue Sky.
Yeah, I'm going to follow us on Blue Sky and DreamWorks and Pixar. I'm going to follow us on all the Illumination.
All right, we'll see you on the next one. Later.
See you in the blue sky.
You're damn right. Just wait a while, giving you the hip at your face now. Wait a while, giving you the hip at your face now. Wait a while, giving you the hip at your face now. Wait a while, giving you the hip at your face now. Wait a while.
Hey everyone, just want to give a quick shout out to my good friend Zach Weber, who provided our intro and outro song, Heebie Jeebies. You can listen to the full version of Heebie Jeebies on iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, or anywhere where you listen to your favorite music. Thanks for listening.